We're just passing it on.
Howdy. Howdy. Thanks for coming down. And I want to thank the Fifth String for having myself, Gene Parsons, and my wife, Meridian Green, to come over here. And appreciate you guys coming down to hear us yak and play a little bit. And, well, we'll start out talking about the Stringbender and kind of where it came from and how it originated. And how many of you know what a Stringbender is? Yeah, maybe. Well, it's a device that pulls the string like a pedal steel guitar, and there's several ways to do it. And the way that I patented back in 1967 is by use of a shoulder strap. The shoulder strap comes down and attaches to a lever here that is attached to a bearing inside the guitar. There's linkages that go back and pull one of the strings, or two, depending on if you have a double bender, which works on a lever on the other side. But we'll just start out with a single bender, and if you push down on the neck, just a real simple little thing. It makes playing guitar a little easier for me. Okay, how did that come about? Clarence White, back in 1966, and I were doing a session. And Clarence was playing the Telecaster. He just really started playing the Telecaster. And he had graduated from bluegrass guitar. And he was fooling around, and he was one of the first people that would chime a string, and then on a Telecaster you can pull the B string or the E string over the nut and get a nice raise, a note raise, with a chime. And he was doing that. We just put the rhythm track down, and he wanted to do that. He says, "I'd love doing that." He says, "But I want to do it at the on the 4 chord and the 5 chord and overdub a little lead line, and I need a third hand to do it." So he and I went in there. We were playing around, and I was his third hand. So he'd hit the string and chime it, and I'd pull it over, and then we went and did a real simple little thing. It was never released, but we had fun with it anyway. And he said, "Boy, that would be fun if we could do that, if there was some way to do it." And I said, "Well, there is. We can put pedals on the floor and run cables in your guitar and have this whole apparatus, and you have a little case for it, and you can hook it all up." And he said, "Oh, no. He says, "I want a regular guitar I can just put in the case when I'm done. I don't want to have all that stuff. If I wanted to play pedal steel, I'd play pedal steel." So he gave me the parameters that he wanted to work in. So I thought about it for a little while, and I thought, well, why not the shoulder strap? And I drew up a design, and he reluctantly offered the Telecaster that he was playing to this Stringbender god at that point. He got another Telecaster to play. I made up the parts, and the first day that I had it, I took it home. I had all my plans, and I had to cut out about 1.5 inches square right straight through the guitar behind the bridge. It was a nice sunburst guitar, and that morning I took that little square of sunburst wood, and I went to have coffee with Clarence, and I put that down in front of him as we were having our coffee. And he said, "What's that?" And I said, "Well, look at it." And he went, "Oh my God." I said, "It's too late now. You're going to have a Stringbender for sure." So, well, he developed a way to play it that is really a wonderful addition to the musical world, especially the guitar world, I think, and you probably have heard a lot of that type of playing. Let's see. I have to look at my little list here and see what else we got. Why the B string? On an electric guitar, where it originated, you can bend the 3rd string pretty easily with your fingers, and all the other strings except maybe the B and the E are the hardest to bend. The E doesn't lend itself to as many applications as the B. So with an electric guitar, we decided to go with the B string. We tried other configurations. Actually, the first Stringbender had pullers for the first 4 strings because we were going to experiment. We ended up just going with the B string, although I did put a little button underneath the elbow here, and Clarence was pulling the the high E with that by moving his arm like that. And he was looking in the mirror one day and he said, boy, that looks weird. He says, I'm not going to do that anymore. He says, it looks too weird. I don't want to look like I'm having a fit on stage. And he says, the B is nice. You can work with a shoulder strap. So we just went with the B. And then you can bend that third string on an electric guitar with your fingers and pull the B or drop the B, so you can get a couple moving notes that way. And let's see. Any questions so far?
When did you come up with the acoustic version of that?
Okay, that's a good question. That there was always wanted to put it in an acoustic, and the problem was, how do you put a device like that in an acoustic and not take the tone away from the guitar? And originally, when I first put it in an acoustic, I was putting a hole in the top and making a plastic pull hub, much like the ones that go in the electric guitars, except out of plastic, with a little stainless steel shield on it. And I was installing that in, and it did pretty well. But it did take a little tone away from the guitar, and not too many people want to drill a hole in the top of the guitar. Although Meridian says, well, why not? There's already a big hole in the guitar. Right there. So one day we were driving along, and Meridian says, well, why don't you just put it in the pinhole? And I said, oh, sure, that'd be easy. And she said, well, why not? I said, you're a machinist. You could do it. And I said, yeah, sure. But we thought about it for a while and came up with the idea of actually just making a little piece that goes in the pinhole. And it doesn't take any tone away from the guitar. The first one was, I think the first one was made in 1982 or 3. And I made a string bender and had a friend of mine build a guitar around it.
When did Mike Beck get here? How long has he been playing?
Oh, he's been playing for many years, probably about 20 years now.
He had his acoustic 20 years ago?
Oh, no, the acoustic,
That he got.
5 years ago.
5 years, maybe 5 or 6 years
The
ago.
first time he brought that in the store shocked us, because he gave me the first one that I got, that one that he gave me after he got a new one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's a good string bender player.
He's a great string
And a
bender
good guitar
player.
player. And a good
He
cowboy.
doesn't run his poetry real well.
Yeah.
But that's what we first saw, that's where I got it. I couldn't believe it.
Well, so, anyway, we went with a magnesium casting so that everything is light, and it weighs about 200 grams, which is about 8 ounces. And this little piece right here is just a little bitty thing, so it doesn't take any tone away from the guitar. We've tested several guitars that we've done. The only hole in the guitar is right here. And that doesn't really affect the tone, rarely affects the tone. I've never had one affect the tone. So it's been around for, what, 82, 92, about 18 years. This particular type has really only been in existence. Mike Beck got one of the first handmade ones, and then the cast units, the magnesium units, are probably only 3 years old. So it's a fairly new device. I'll play a little tune for you. You want to sing with me on Willing? Sweetie, you want to do a couple tunes and we'll demonstrate it? Or?
Sure. But aren't there other Bender players here? There are some other Bender players here.
I bet there are.
I mean, because especially like on Willing. Willing is such a cool tune to have some other Bender
It's true.
players play on, because you play it open G and it's so beautiful. There must be a Bender player around.
I'm going to put it in an
There's
open tune right
a
now.
better player from Japan in the back.
All Bender players, please stand up and report.
Steve, where?
There's a song on the Sweetheart of the Rodeo album called 100 Years From Now. Is that a mix of string bender and steel?
No, actually, there was no string bender on Sweetheart of the Rodeo.
That's what's scary, yeah, the Nashville West too, there's none, that's what Roland told me.
No string bender. Clarence used to play so unbelievably. He did bends and whatnot that,
That's not a string bender.
no.
Gene, was it fair to say that once Clarence and you guys put that bender in, the approach changed from trying to sound like a pedal steel to having a guitar with a B bender?
I would say so, and Clarence was, when I put the B bender in his guitar, he really was using it a whole lot. And he started losing some of the other stuff that he was doing. And before I put that unit in his guitar, I recorded how he played at one of our gigs, which then later became the Nashville West record.
Right.
And that was never intended to be a record. It was only a documenting of how Clarence played. And And I would play those tapes to him and say, hey, Clarence, the Stringbender stuff is nice, but don't forget that stuff that you used to do because it's real precious. And then he listened, he went, oh yeah. And he started incorporating a little less Stringbender and putting it in a little more spicy places maybe.
In many instances, doesn't it almost feel like the beat bender has more in common with a banjo than a guitar in some cases?
Well, as a kid, I put, of course, I made my own scrug pegs, and then I put pedals on a banjo.
Oh.
I had one mounted in at night in my dad's shop. You know, he says, "You're supposed to get that D8 out the door." You know, you have that the rolls welded up on that D8, and I'd be in there late at night mounting a banjo on a post with pedals. You know, and he'd come and says, "What the hell is that?" You know. Well, I don't know what it
You
is.
told me that. I didn't realize you'd always been bent. I thought it happened later in life.
But
When
yeah,
you put it in the acoustic, did you change your approach from the electric way you played it because of the difference of sustain issues?
I do play differently with it. The acoustic is a different instrument than
It
the
is.
electric. With the Stringbender, the Stringbender is a totally different thing in the acoustic than it is in the electric. I think anyway. It's just
Are you messing with finger picking around it?
that's all I do is finger picking really.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just made me baffled. And when I look at the acoustic you put in, I think I got to relearn the instruments.
I've heard people do wonderful things with flat pick. Fact is, we went to Marty Stewart's house, and I had done a string bender for him, and his guitar player in his band, his steel guitar player, picked up that guitar and started playing bluegrass.
Richard Starkey can do that. He put it out and he pulled it out at top speed and he kicked my rear at like Big Mun full speed with the bender, and it made me think, man, this is vibrant.
I know, it's awesome what some people can do. I'm not quite like that, but I do a little different approach.